Good afternoon, surfers, weather watchers, climate observers, folks who are interested in the beach and water sports. All of you good people. For this segment of the OBX Wave Report, I'm going to be covering Climate Strike Week 235, led by Greta Thunberg here, and a big shout out to Greta Thunberg and all the climate activists this Friday who are striking for our future, for action on climate, for action to preserve the life supports of our planet, and to hold leaders accountable and to ensure that they work for justice and sustainability and truly work for life here on Earth. But before I get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I've been up to. I've got this little bad boy up and running. We did get down to the coastline and get some observations of the storm that is rolling in. We've got a gale force system coming in from the west, and there's some rain sweeping over the Outer Banks. And I did get out into the water and ride some little tiny waves with this thing, and use the floaty and the bite mount. So this is a tool that I'm going to be using to share wave, weather, and climate observations with you guys. And yep, this is a GoPro Hero 10. And this Hero 10 is going to be Hero for wave, weather, and climate action for coastal defense. I've named him. This is Raven Eye. And Raven Eye will be bringing you some pretty cool shots in a minute. In fact, I am uploading it now to my phone, and then we'll upload it to the YouTubes. All right, so for this special segment of the OBX Wave Report, I am going to promote the climate activists. I am going to promote clean energy, and specifically, I'm going to promote e-bikes, and we're going to talk a little bit about how amazing e-bikes are at reducing harmful emissions. But before we get into that, I would just like to focus on the Friday for Future climate strike. This week, people, not profit, prosperity, not greed. We are in solidarity here with climate activists who do so much for coastal defense, to raise awareness on the ongoing effects of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning, and to hold accountable bad actors who are in power and who are either failing to act swiftly enough or standing directly in the way of climate action. So thank you, Greta Thunberg, and all of the climate activists out there. Anyone listening to this broadcast, I encourage you to amplify the messages of the climate activists today. Like, share, subscribe, retweet, post, lift your own voices, use your own creativity, get the message out. We're all in this together, and we all have a little bit of power that we can use. So I encourage you to use your power, which is your voice, to speak for the future and to encourage climate action and encourage the clean energy transition and the preservation of our natural system and the revitalization of it. So thank you for all of you who are involved in that. I am going to do my best to amplify you, even as we get out and get into the climate, deeply into the climate. We're getting into the ocean together, and we're going to experience our natural world together, which is awesome. All right. So yes. One of the events that happened this past week, which may or may not have a climate fingerprint on it, but that we're going to talk about in the context of climate change, is Cyclone Gabrielle, which was a hurricane force cyclone that formed off to the north and east of Australia in the warmer waters and then tracked southward. Southward is in the southern hemisphere is toward the pole. And so this cyclone formed, tracked southward, and impacted over 3 million people across New Zealand. 3/5 of the population of New Zealand was impacted by this system, causing a state of emergency to be declared in New Zealand as residents struggle to deal with the devastation left by Cyclone Gabrielle. It does appear that there might be a climate fingerprint with regards to this storm. The storm did get into a high latitude and maintain a lot of strength as it got into the higher latitudes, and this was enabled, it appears, by much warmer than normal ocean temperatures around New Zealand, particularly as you get further to the south, further poleward there in New Zealand. But according to Prime Minister Chris Hipkins, this event was the country's biggest weather event in a century. So we don't have all the data yet, but I'm sure that the weather experts and climate experts are going to be talking about Gabrielle for a while to come, as this has severely impacted New Zealand. In any case, I did want to show you the amazing satellite sequence of Cyclone Gabrielle strengthening off of the east coast of Australia as it heads south toward New Zealand. This on 8 to 9 February as it was intensifying, and just a gorgeous satellite shot of the clouds of Gabrielle, and you can see the powerful inflow, the firing of the thunderstorms around the center, just boom, 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 as this massive cyclone intensified and headed off toward New Zealand. By the time it got into the cooler waters, it became more of a baroclinic system, but it did, kind of have a hybrid element to it as it strengthened and slammed into New Zealand with hurricane force winds, torrential rains, and storm surge flooding. I did want to show you the ocean dynamics, particularly the heat. We talk about heat a lot here at the OBX Wave Report, and hurricanes, tropical cyclones, storms like Gabrielle, they're heat engines. And so if the ocean surface is warmer, that does provide a lot of energy for the storm. Now, in the waters near Australia here, the ocean water temperatures are somewhat warmer than normal in many locations and somewhat cooler than normal in some. But for the most part, near the coast of Australia here, ocean water temperatures where Gabrielle formed were warmer than normal. There was a region of water that it did pass through that was somewhat colder than normal. But then as it got closer to New Zealand, it got into much warmer than normal waters in the range about looks like 4 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Now these waters are still cool in the upper 60s, lower 70s, but still the warmer water allowed Gabrielle to get into a higher latitude and maintain more intensity at that higher latitude. And then once it got into that higher latitude, it did tap into more baroclinicity as it got some cooler air in the system, but that did help to sometimes cooler air injected into a cyclone can actually cause it to strengthen, as we saw with Hurricane Sandy back in 2012. And this is what appears to have happened with Gabrielle as it moved southward toward the pole. Worth noting that it got, it's a hurricane strength around, it looks like 40 degrees south latitude, and just as a comparison, 40 degrees north latitude is, let's see, about New Jersey. So a pretty high latitude storm with an extraordinary intensity, one that likely has some climate fingerprints on it. We'll leave it to the experts to determine what degree climate change influenced Gabrielle, but with those warmer than normal waters, it does appear like there was a degree of a fingerprint from the climate system on Gabrielle. Now, with storms strengthening near the coastlines and sea levels rising, we are very focused and interested on transitioning to clean energy. And here for myself, one of the things that I did for my family and for Kat and I, my wife, is we got an e-bike. E-bikes are a very efficient mode of transportation, and we're going to get into that in a minute. They are also a clean energy, a portion of the clean energy system. They're battery powered. You can plug them into wind, water, and solar and have zero emissions in use. The kind of e-bike that we got was a Magnum e-bike. It's really fun, great bike. We've been having a blast on it. Cat's been tooling around Mania. We got on a bike ride earlier today and just had a ball. It's really increased her mobility. It's just a joy to see her shooting around on this little thing. It's kind of like a hybrid moped bike. You can pedal, you can use the electric. If you're mobility challenged and you're trying to get your strength back, if you have like knee and joint issues, the e-bike is going to definitely add to your mobility and still give you the opportunity to get some exercise in at the same time, which is just nice. But one of the nice things about an e-bike, as I mentioned before, is you can plug it into wind, water, and solar, but it's also just generally an extraordinarily efficient form of transportation. And here are some statistics from the Climate Action Center on e-bikes. They have an e-bike project at the Climate Action Center, and they found that e-bikes get anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 miles per gallon equivalent, which is insane. E-bikes cost less than a penny a mile to charge, so very little cost to charge. E-bikes can go 70 times as far as a 30 mile per gallon car per pound of climate emissions. And this is, of course, life cycle climate emissions, including the emissions that are used to manufacture the bike. They are 20 times more efficient than electric cars, and with electric cars being about 3 at least times more efficient than an infernal internal noxious combustion engine vehicle. That's about 60 times more efficient than your you know internal combustion engine. Um, and let's see. And e-bikes get 30 to 100 times more miles per pound of battery than electric cars. Just amazing efficiency and amazing potential. What I would like to say is that these equivalencies are based on a system that is still primarily run by fossil fuels, and that as you have more clean energy in the system, the miles per gallon equivalent of anything electric is going to improve. And eventually you'll get to basically zero emissions, both from the manufacturing chain, if the manufacturing chain is run by clean energy and sustainable sources, and if the energy is also coming from only wind, water, and solar. So when you see these numbers here, they're not fixed. They're a moving value that improves as the energy system becomes cleaner over time and as the manufacturing system becomes cleaner over time. So that's really awesome. Now, as talking about e-bikes, I did just want to note that I've been talking about how e-bikes plug into wind, water, and solar, and I just on Friday for Future, it's just imperative for me to highlight the hope and potential provided by clean energy. This is something that I wrote about in Growth Shock in a book that I wrote called Growth Shock. And one of the things I said was that, you know, we're there's all this questing for a miracle, but clean energy right now, solar power, wind power particularly, is a miracle. And this is one of the things that Mark Jacobson has also been saying a lot as well. Rather than searching for a miracle, we need to look at the wind, water, solar tech in front of us. Combining these with storage, demand response, transmission, and efficient appliances will allow us to solve all three ginormous problems at low cost worldwide. And um, the problems being energy security, climate change, and pollution. And so I just like to take this a step further. I completely agree with Mark here, and I think you guys, everyone should follow Mark. Mark's like total expert on clean energy. Um, Please write, report, amplify what Mark has to say. But I just like to add to what Mark's saying here, and you know, we've got the miracle. I mean, wind and solar are miracle energy solutions. They are less expensive than fossil fuels. They benefit from economies of scale in manufacturing, and they benefit from breakthroughs in technology. They're like the computer chip, but for energy. The more we put into them, the more we're going to get out of them. And we're getting this wonderful scale of increased efficiency and reduced cost when it comes to both of these technologies. Water doesn't scale quite as rapidly, but water is a very powerful energy system in its own right. But wind and solar, these are miracle energy sources, in my opinion. And it's so funny how we're like, I don't know, you get these folks out there that are looking for, silver bullets when we've actually got the, I guess, weapons we need, for lack of a better word, to fight pollution, to fight climate change, and to establish energy security. If your energy systems are based on manufacturing that you produce at home, and you can provide the materials that you need for that manufacturing, for the most part, either from your allies or from home sources, then your energy is secure. And it's a lot more easy to secure your energy source when it is based on manufacturing than when it's based on something that's in this pile in the ground that is geography specific and that depletes over time. Mainly fossil fuels. That's exactly what fossil fuels do. But fossil fuels, they also pollute. They make people sick. They make animals sick. They ruin the environment. And when you burn them, they inject carbon into the atmosphere, which causes amplifying harm over time and ultimately can wreck the life support systems here on Earth if you get too much carbon injected into the atmosphere. So it's all bad when it comes to fossil fuels. One scientist, I believe, once called fossil fuels energy from hell. And that's about right. But wind, water, and solar, energy from heaven, it is the miracle solution. So on this Friday for Future, let's remember that. And let's do all the things to amplify the Mark Jacobsons of the world and the Greta Thunbergs of the world and get us on a track for sustainability and improving the life support systems of our world and revitalizing it. We can. We've got the human ingenuity. We've got the brains. And you know what? We've got the better angels too. We just need to listen to them. And we need to amplify the better angels rather than doing the opposite. So thank you for joining me for this special edition of the OBX Wave Report. And I just uploaded a video to my phone and it's going to be on the YouTubes soon. So I've got 2 fun videos with Raven Eye here, and we'll be sharing those with you soon. So thank you for joining me again.